WeWork was supposed to be revolutionary. After all, in the age of social media and modern tech, WeWork's goal of creating collaborative workspaces that offered a sense of community for entrepreneurs seemed like a profitable idea. However, as time wore on, it became clear that WeWork was not only a flawed concept, but likely to bleed billions of dollars. So on today's episode of Super Freaky Science, we're going to give you the inside scoop on not only what WeWork is, but also what exactly went wrong, and what the company has in store for the future. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you never miss out on our latest content. Now before we get into the details, it's first important to understand exactly what WeWork is, because despite it having the appearance of your average Silicon Valley startup company, it in fact isn't one at all. That's because rather than create any innovative new tech, WeWork is really just a landlord for hipsters, young entrepreneurs, and millennials. How, you may ask? Well, that's because WeWork essentially uses a space-as-a-service business model. You see, WeWork first starts by acquiring large swaths of office space from already established office buildings on 15-year lease agreements. WeWork then outfits the space with all the amenities that you might expect in a trendy work environment, including such things as wellness centers, parking, snack bars, and collaborative workspaces. Once the spaces are ready, they then rent out rooms and floors in the building to both entrepreneurs and the employees of startups, with these services ranging from just $45 per month for a single desk in a collaborative workspace to a few $1,000s per month for a dedicated office. From there, WeWork then ensures that each building fosters a sense of community via its friendly staff, common areas, and in some locations, free beer. It's this complete package that then entices people to stay, as they get not just an office space, but also a great work environment, not to mention the chance to network with other creators. Now at a first glance, this business model doesn't seem all that bad. After all, it's already been pulled off successfully before by a company called International Workplace Group, or IWG. In fact, ever since their founding in 1989, their publicly traded company has managed to spread across 120 countries, gain a presence in about 1,000 cities, amass over 3,000 locations, attract about 2.5 million members, and most importantly of all, remain profitable. To top this off, after about 30 years of hard work, the company has managed to attain a valuation of about $3.7 billion pre-pandemic. Thus, suspicions began to arise when in 2019, despite having far less assets, WeWork was not only able to beat IWG's valuation, but absolutely crush it. That's because at its peak in early 2019, despite the fact that WeWork was running at a $1.9 billion loss, had 80% less members, had about 85% fewer locations, plus about 50% less revenue, its valuation came in at a staggering $47 billion. But how did this happen? Well, let's first start from the beginning. You see, WeWork was founded all the way back in 2010 by Israeli-born founder Adam Neumann and American-born business owner Miguel McKelvey. However, it was Neumann who really took the reins on the company from the get-go by acting as CEO, and it's not hard to see why, because Neumann, who spent time in the Israeli Navy before completing business school at Baruch College in New York City, was nothing if not charismatic. A people person by nature, he had mastered the art of attracting investment in WeWork, and his most notable catch being Masayoshi Son, who is the founder of SoftBank. That's because after just a 12-minute conversation with the billionaire, Neumann not only secured an investment, but did so to the tune of $18.5 billion over an 8-year period. To put this into perspective, this was more than the entire GDP of the 11 million person strong country of Bolivia. And remember, that's just from one single investor. Incredibly, after his cash injection, Neumann continued to secure smaller rounds of funding from a number of firms. And although the figures are private, the total likely is in excess of $20 billion. And so, as a result of all this funding, it should come as no surprise that the hype surrounding WeWork began to explode. That's because despite just starting with one New York office in 2011, the company soon began to grow exponentially every year, with its valuation being set at $10 billion in 2016, $20 billion in 2017, and ultimately, while it was in the midst of its first IPO, an all-time high of $47 billion in January of 2019. However, this $47 billion appraisal marked the beginning of the company's downfall. You see, the reason why this was given was because the company was, as we said before, going through an IPO or initial public offering. This is what a company does when it wants to go public and put its shares on the stock market. However, by doing so, a company must also publicly announce things such as its balance sheet, business plans, and internal reports. And while this is not a problem for most firms, it was this prospect that ultimately led to a number of cracks in the company being exposed. It was these cracks that ultimately led to WeWork's downfall. Now, what were these cracks, you may ask? Well, the first main issue can be seen with the company's founder. That's because even by the standards of CEOs, he was a corrupt narcissist. You see, one thing that Neumann would often do was find ways to embezzle money into his personal accounts. And while he typically wasn't caught, he got into hot water when he personally trademarked the word "we" and then sold it to the company for $5.9 million worth of stock. He would also appoint his friends and family to management positions within the company, despite them having neither the skill nor the ability to perform well in these roles, which led to widespread mismanagement. In fact, a notorious example of this mismanagement came in 2019 when, after telling employees in a company meeting that 7% of them would have to be laid off in order to balance the budget, he brought in shots of tequila and a member of Run DMC to rap to everyone. And to top this all off, Neumann was reportedly an absolute tyrant to work under, with one employee testifying that, quote, "No one would want to get in his way. You would either get berated or humiliated or asked to do some impossible task," end quote. When you then consider further that Neumann even had a photoshopped picture of himself surfing in his office and would go on to make a ridiculous company-wide ban on meat while still eating it himself, it becomes clear that his leadership and personality was certainly a little unstable. But the one factor that perhaps even outdid Neumann's obnoxious behavior was his desire to expand too much, too quickly. That's because rather than stick to a similar business model, as did the aforementioned company IWG, and grow slowly and sustainably, he quickly began to start a number of new ventures and invest in a number of new companies, with each being even more ridiculous than the last. For example, in 2016, he created a co-living venture known as We Live. In 2017, a private school for children known as We Grow, and in that same year, a luxury gem known as Rise by We. Yet while this mishmash of new companies was already messy, Neumann made things worse by also investing in a number of outside ventures that had absolutely nothing to do with the rental industry. For example, in 2016, he invested millions into a Spanish wave pool company called Wave Garden because he reportedly wanted his company to embody the spirit of the surfing community. And in 2019, Neumann invested an undisclosed amount into the company LAIRS Superfoods after meeting its founder Laird Hamilton while surfing. As a result, this lack of focus and frivolous use of investor funds ended up sinking the company into so large of a hole that it wasn't even making money for every new person who became a member. Yeah, rather than make a profit, WeWork managed to lose more than $4,300 per desk in 2017, while its close competitor IWG earned a profit of about $500 per desk during the same time period. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that WeWork has been in complete freefall ever since their IPO announcement totally unveiled all of the company's issues. And while billions have been invested in the firm, today it only has a valuation of about $8 billion, and even then that was only because SoftBank was planning to bail out the company and become a majority shareholder for a cost of $3 billion. However, due to SoftBank pulling out of the deal, the shares, which had been valued at about $19 each, are now only valued at about $4 per share, meaning that a new valuation would be even lower. As a result, the company seems to be in dire financial straits, and many believe that they may soon file for bankruptcy. Despite this negativity, there still is hope. That's because not only was Neumann ousted from the company in late 2019, but ever since, WeWork has also reportedly amassed $4.4 billion in cash commitments. And due to some extreme cost-cutting measures by both Executive Chairman Marcelo Claure and CEO Sandeep Mathrani, WeWork plans to be cash flow positive by 2021. To top this off, WeWork has claimed that the pandemic has actually helped accelerate their business, as they've reportedly experienced a boost in demand from companies seeking flexible office arrangements because of the coronavirus pandemic. This is primarily because WeWork office spaces can be rented out on a short-term monthly basis, which in the uncertain economic times that the pandemic has created, it's preferable to long-term leases, which often tend to be signed for multiple years. But of course, until we see these plans come into fruition, the company will likely continue to have a poor reputation and be widely perceived as an abject failure for years to come. That's all we have on WeWork for you. Let us know in the comments what you think the fate of the company is. Thanks for watching Super Freaky Science, and don't forget to subscribe.